I was at a wedding yesterday, and I had to use the bathroom. And they had the luxurious stalls get covered all the way to the ground. Style stalls.
Pure privacy.
So you get your privacy while you're in there.
And you're stuck with your own stink.
Well, that's okay. It's mine. I wallow in it. But I was in there, and I was having a graceful poop. There was no need for straining. There was no need for any kind of triads. I sit, I shit, I quit. Right. But
all those immaculate expulsions.
Yeah, and while I'm in there, I'm being real quiet, and all of a sudden somebody comes into the bathroom, and there's a urinal and a stall. And apparently, just by the sound of it, it was an old man. Mm-hmm. And I'm scared to death of becoming old now, because I heard this old man grunt and strain and swear. Oh!
And that's just for a number one?
That's exactly what it was like.
He probably has prostate issues.
We have to come up with a prostate supplement. Pro-state.
It's my favorite college football team.
Pro-state?
Yeah.
Now, would it be a pill supplementation or like a suppository?
Well, you think you get directly to the source a lot easier if you use a suppository.
That's why I think so, too. Can it smell like black walnuts at least?
The pro-state walnuts.
Perfect.
That's our college football team. The pro-state walnuts.
Pro-state walnuts.
Their quarterback's got a laser beam of throw. Hey everybody, I'm Dane Holland.
I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer.
I'm Marcus, I'm Electric Man.
And I'm Austin Tiny Zent.
And this is Nerd It Through the Grapevine, the podcast where four best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture. And today, I want to talk about big fucking robots. Because I love them, and they're cool, and I want to learn with you why I love them so much. Because growing up, there was all kinds of shows that had big robots in it, and also known as mechs, which I think mechs stands for something, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. I feel like it's something that has to do with mobile.
Mechanized.
Mechanized?
Yeah, mechanical.
But I thought that it also stood for something. Does it not stand for something?
Yeah, it's short for Mexican.
That stays in the episode.
It's not going to work.
Yes, it is. Okay, there. It's set. Our Grapevine board of all of our ideas just fell, and it scared me.
We need an easel, but only if it's a Vend brand.
I don't go easel with anything, Tiny. We go hard. So I want to talk about big robots. And growing up, I had Voltron, Power Rangers, Zoids, Transformers, Neo Genesis Evangelion, Gundam, everything. GoBots, and what was this one?
Mine, I contributed. My contribution to it was Megas XLR. It was a Cartoon Network show about two guys that just work on junk cars, and they ended up turning one junk car into a full-blown transforming mech.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And then as we got a little bit older, Pacific Rim came along. But mechs, they're so cool, and they're big, and they're robots. And I think it's a pillar of nerd culture is mechs, because you're going to find Gundam everywhere. That nerd things are there. And to be honest, I've not watched a whole bunch of Gundam because there's so much Gundam. And I feel like it's a very, because the storylines don't even really connect with each other, I think, for the most part. It's just cool future stories with robot people and inside of the robots.
Yeah, and the Gundams were the more specified variants of those giant robots that were more technologically advanced. They had better armor than what they made the other giant mechs out of, called Gundanium.
Such a cool thing.
And they also, the ones that I remember the most were Mobile Fighter Z Gundam, which that was on Toonami a lot. It's where they had a neuro suit that they had over their entire body, and the cockpit to the Gundam wasn't levers and knobs. It was actually responsive to the fighter's movements inside of the Gundam. So you piloted the machine with your body inside of this chamber. So it wasn't you pushing levers or buttons or anything. It was you actually the Gundam was mimicking the fighter's moves.
Cool. Kind of like with Pacific Rim. But Pacific Rim is more mechanical, and you've got two people involved with it.
Yes, because they say that they have to share the load. It's a neuro load that they have to share to pilot such a large machine that they put in there, so they have to operate in teams.
But I think that Gundam was the one that you just mentioned. Was that the one with the golden finger shining Gundam thing or whatever?
Yes, because he had shining finger and he had burning finger.
Yeah,
because you had the shining Gundam and you had the burning Gundam.
And in that, I think the main, because that was the one that I had watched the most of as well. I even had like a fighting game on PlayStation for it, but that's one where each country had their own mech, their own Gundam that was designed specifically for them for, I guess, like fighting tournaments and stuff. But like the one from China had like these dragon whip arms. The one from America had boxing, like it was a boxing style. The Japanese one was the main one with the shining finger.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was just one that was for each kind of country that was represented with a Gundam. And I think that one made more sense to my brain because they were all very unique and specified towards a country, as opposed to a lot of the other Gundam, which is a bunch of different cool looking robots.
Wait, that wasn't just a meme?
Do what?
That wasn't just a meme?
What are you talking about?
I saw a meme of different Gundam style things as countries. I thought it was just a meme.
Yeah. No, that might have been like contrived from that idea.
I had no idea.
But yeah, that was my
Gundam.
Exactly. And I think before that, I mean, that came out before Power Rangers did, but with Power Rangers, we had they weren't people until the Megazord was formed, because they had animals be their mechs that they rode around in, which was really cool and different from Gundam. Yeah, because it wasn't looking like a person until, like I said, the Megazord came along.
And they also had other Power Rangers ones too that came in later iterations. Like you went from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, were the Dinozords, and then that went from the Dinozords to what were called the Thunderzords. And the Red Ranger got his own kind of his own little mech that was a dragon that transformed into a warrior. The Red Dragon Thunderzord. And
I actually do remember that one.
Something that all of the ones that we've talked about so far, like as far as like Power Rangers, Pacific Rim, Gundam, all these, even Voltron, like Voltron's similar to Power Rangers to where the animals formed a humanoid looking robot.
Yeah.
But the main kind of like vibe with those was, yes, the mechs were super powerful machines that are crazy, awesome sci-fi kind of stuff, but without the human aspect of it, they were kind of worthless. Like it was all about, like, you could have a much weaker mech, but as long as the person piloting it was like, I don't know, had friendship, or some kind of personality trait that was, that they weren't going to give up, the persevere. That's where the main power came for these giant machines. So the story was still about the humans like involved with it. It ended up not even being about the mechs.
Same thing with Zoids. Because in Zoids, their main nemesis that they had going on was this giant elephant mech that was just armed to the teeth with just the
tusks.
Elephants don't have teeth.
Yes, the elephants not have teeth?
Yes,
Surely elephants
have teeth. They have tusks.
They've got a tooth in there, don't
they?
They
got 2 tusks, no teeth.
Elephants don't have a tooth?
All smooth mouth.
I don't believe that.
I got to look this up.
They've got an extra hand, so they need no teeth.
They have 4 other teeth in a set.
What?
Tiny. Yes.
Okay, I'm not
apart from 2 tusks.
I'm not an expert. That's surprising.
Elephants have only 4 other teeth in a set, so now we know.
But Zoids had, your main one was called the Liger Zero, which was like a white, almost tiger-looking robot.
A lion and a tiger were a one?
Yeah, Liger, except less genetic problems in the machine. And then you had different variations to go. They would change the mechanical structure of the Liger to fight different enemies. You had like the Liger Zero Jaeger, which was like the super speed version of it that was blue instead of white. You had the Panzer, which was the green version that was like super armored and just missiles and guns and all this other stuff.
And something that all of these do also, like, the scale isn't quite there, because whenever you're watching something like this, like the massive size of these machines, they're usually battling something large also. Like Pacific Rim did some good shots, like to kind of show the massive scale of these things, but they're going up against kaiju. And like the Power Rangers go up against one of, Rita Repulsa's enlarged villains. And
yeah, like a giant puddle of gold.
Dadgummit, that movie.
Yeah, but in the show, I feel like
perfect.
they did pretty good at what you're talking about, the scale.
The scale in,
because I
in the
remember
Power
like
Rangers
Goldar.
TV show.
Yeah, because I remember Goldar
Yeah.
would get like really big, and
Right.
everybody would be like running. He'd be stomping on cities, and then they would, morph their Zords together, and then it would just be like a misty background with like volcanoes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
All
I
the-
feel like they did
the-
an okay job at that.
As soon as the mechs showed up, though, like that's when you were never on the street looking up at how big Megazord was.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
I don't feel like
Yeah, it
once
was just all in comparison to like, I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong.
No, I
too,
think
so.
yeah, I think you're right.
And it happened.
I feel like there was in a couple episodes you saw him like by the foot of a Megazord.
Yep.
Oh,
Just
really?
For like a second, like running in there. You
And
know.
that's exactly what I was going to say. And also towards the end of the Thunder Megazord era of Power Rangers, the Zords were destroyed by Rita Repulsa's brother.
It's a sad day.
And they had to go. Yeah, Rito Repulsa was his name, and he ended up destroying the Thunder Megazord and the White Tiger Zord, and they had to go seek power from Ninjor. To be able to have the ninja powers, and whenever they got knocked out of their Zords, and they were like all on the ground, all defeated and stuff, you saw like the destroyed Zords and stuff behind them, and they looked massive.
Yeah.
So I mean, the scale of Zord to person is ridiculous.
yeah, and it wasn't shown often then, right? I mean, it was shown. You just didn't get to see it much.
No.
And like that's something you kind of get lost in the sauce, like as far as the scale of them goes.
Well, I remember when they fought Massive Ivan Ooze in the movie,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
They were like busting him up against buildings and stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, and then the Gundam stuff. They've got that giant Japanese puppet statue of the Gundam.
Yes.
That can kind of show you like the grandiose size of these machines, because Gundams themselves, I don't feel like Gundams are as big as like the Power Rangers, like Megazords are.
No, because they were towering over mountains, like
Yeah.
the Megazord was.
Yeah. Whereas like the Gundam's more or less like your 25, 30 foot tall kind of thing, to where it's just a giant enhanced piece of military equipment, as opposed to this fantasistical, like powered by the morphing grid.
Yeah.
Whatever the F that is.
Fantasistical.
Good word.
I mean, I will throw in.
Is
just
it a word?
I don't know. He's used it multiple times. I feel like it is.
I'm going to throw in a random Power Ranger fact. The only old Zord canonically that still exists, the Dragon Zord.
Really?
Yep.
It's still around?
Yeah, because like
I didn't know
it just goes into the ocean back from whence it came
Oh,
when
like
Tommy lost
Godzilla.
his powers.
Until somebody pulls out a dagger that's also a flute.
So we just have to find that, and then we can summon that and defeat, I don't know, COVID or something.
It's our only hope. Oh. But these shows and stuff, like they all kind of pulled from one another. They all had the same kind of vibe to them, I feel like, except for, I mean, you mentioned military tech. Like military wise, that's Gundam is the only one that I'm seeing, at least on our list, that had anything to do military wise.
Neon Genesis Evangelion was
That
also,
was also a government project.
They
You're
were
right.
also government
And that one
project.
was screwed up. You can watch that anime 10 times, still not get everything that it's talking about.
Pacific Rim
It's
was government too.
wild. Was it really?
Yeah, it was because they had different countries in Pacific Rim that were all making their own.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It turns out I don't know anything.
Well, you do know things; it just gets lost in the
It
sauce.
does exactly like we mentioned before.
Like
Yeah.
Lost Tech.
Yeah,
Just like Lost Tech.
So how many of these on the list would fit that category of lost tech.
Lost tech?
Yeah, because like the Transformers, I know they're like some alien race of bots.
Yes, from their own planet.
That humans discover.
Mm-hmm.
So that would fit this like lost ancient technology trope.
I think the Power Rangers Zords were
because they
Power
ancient
Rangers.
tech.
Right. Well, and Zordon is kind of the one that brings that to Earth.
Right.
Yeah. Stuff that could actually happen in a couple of them, like the idea of that big Japanese puppet Gundam being able to move and to be able to do certain sets of things, that isn't far-fetched from being able to actually having a walking mobile armor suit.
Yeah, because I mean, it is a puppet.
Yeah.
You're just the way you use it is different. But in the idea of the ancient tech stuff, like that's where it gets even more sci-fi than even us thinking about in the future of us creating, military creating this giant mechanized thing, because there's always something a little extra to, and I think living, like sometimes organic kind of stuff or something living having to do with it and being that ancient tech. And that's something I think even in Neo Genesis Evangelion, like they had, like theirs had this living organic kind of thing to it from some kind of alien race stuff. Like, so it had a mixture of that too. Yeah. Yeah. It was more of that. And then they didn't realize until later, like opening its power up, all the way and becoming something they had no idea that it was, because they're messing around with this ancient tech.
Right. And that's usually the trope is that like, we're messing around with it. It's in some sort of stasis state. And then all of a sudden we need to harness it to defeat the bad guys or whatever. And it's still like in working order, but it could sometimes even be like more sentient than the people that are trying to use it.
Yeah. Like it's something that you can't really understand it completely, because in what was it, Cloverfield?
Yes.
Paradox? Is that the name of it? What was it called?
There was Cloverfield, there was the Cloverfield Lane, and there was the Cloverfield Paradox. Paradox was the explanation of how Cloverfield happened.
Right. But it was in space.
Yes.
And the ship itself had like some kind of living thing going on with it.
Yeah.
So some kind of like space tech, from another world.
Well, there is this idea that like when you invent something new, like are you really inventing it, or are you just like rediscovering it? Because there are things that have been invented independently like hundreds of times probably.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Actually, fun fact, the flushable toilet has been invented independently 24 different times and has been lost technology itself like at least 12 times.
That's crazy.
That's not surprising. I mean, you watch Ancient Aliens for at least one season, and you're going to see these structures, that are built thousands of years ago that modern technology now isn't able to recreate the way that they did them. Like they're not able to make the lines as smooth. And like there's this one place, I don't remember where it is. It's somewhere in the Middle East, because that's where a bunch of this stuff happens on Ancient Aliens. But they have an entire building that's sculpted out of the side of a mountain that's like perfectly square in the side of that mountain, with just minuscule gap between the mountain wall and the building's wall, that they don't know how they did it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Certainly it has to be extraterrestrials. There's no other explanation.
Yeah.
Like there could be another explanation.
Maybe, but let's go with the cool one.
73,000 slaves and finite chisels.
Well, I mean, that's where this kind of stuff belongs, in my opinion, is fiction. Like, of course, I'm glad these people exist, because they give me all kinds of ideas for like some sort of lost civilization full of Gundam robots and stuff. Oh
yeah, you can take all those ideas and kind of warp them into your own.
Oh yeah,
into your own world.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
well,
really
and
cool.
it's almost gets into the root of like human mythology too. I mean, because like some of the oldest mythologies are talking about those from who the heavens came. There's here's some more Ancient Aliens type of stuff. But, the Anunnaki, the ones who came from the stars and came and taught us how to do these kinds of things. Yeah, but I mean, that is a fantastical version. The toilet, that's a real version. So it's like, I feel like that's kind of where these tropes come from, is that like this stuff actually happens. Like the Romans, like aqueduct systems and stuff like that. And some of the ways they built their buildings was lost for centuries until we rediscovered it.
So are you saying that when I go do a poo-poo, that I'm doing that inside of an alien?
No, you're doing it into a
I'm
revived...
doing it in an Anunnaki.
Oh my gosh, it does sound like a poo, doesn't it? I gotta go take one big fat Anunnaki, guys. I'll be back.
Man, I was straining so hard to get that Anunnaki out.
No, it's a technology that was lost to time at certain points. Like it was invented, and then through interregnum or whatever it's like a decrease in technology and know-how. You know, I mean, think about nowadays, like with the internet and all the technology we have, especially with it becoming increasingly complex and increasingly sophisticated. Eventually, like, you know, there won't be very many people that understand it.
Right.
And therefore, you know, could become a lost technology itself. And so if you think of like the internet in that sense, like there could be like a galaxy-wide internet that we haven't discovered yet.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and ours is just a fraction of what that could do.
Well, and that's where like the Eldritch Abominations live, and they're, you know, they were a program that was deleted and expelled outside of
reality.
that. Right. Well, and actually, I found this really cool series synopsis when I was looking up this stuff. I'd have to find it. Actually, I got it right here. It's called Zones of Thought by Werner Vinge. It sounds just so cool. In the unthinking depths near the core of the galaxy, no intelligence is possible. In the slow zone, I'm in the wrong part. We're gonna have to figure it out. Hold on,
find the right part. Find the right part.
Okay, so basically in the zones of thought, the whole gimmick is like the singularity is turned sideways and it becomes like this boundary in space instead of like in time. And there's like different zones. Like the slow zone is where Earth is like just mundane and like no like magic, you know, or no like high technology. And but beyond that, like the soft sci-fi tropes like faster than light travel and anti-gravity become available. But then like in the third one, like it just transcends and everything's sufficiently advanced to be godlike, right? Because that's basically what happens in this. They find this galaxy spanning type internet, like almost like the internet was this rediscovered technology that now we're in contact with it. This like 5 billion year old virus, you know, is about to be reprogrammed and start taking it back over and stuff.
That's cool.
So,
And to think about what would happen to the world if the internet was to somehow be destroyed. Like if somebody found a way to absolutely eradicate the internet, that'd be a very, I mean, I wouldn't say like it would end the world, but that'd be close to world ending if the internet went away, because there's so many people that run businesses from that. There are people that are keeping up with, you know, all the stocks and everything else from that. There are people that are using, that's the only reason that they're famous by like the TikTok and all
like
those
us
other,
with the podcast.
Yeah.
right, loosely termed famous. But they would, if the internet went away, technology and just intellect in general, I believe, would just nosedive, because most of the stuff that we learn now isn't coming out of a printed, open it up and read it book. We're getting stuff off the internet because we have information at our fingertips to learn anything that we want to know and just search it out and find it out.
Exactly. Just like, 45 minutes ago, we learned how to do a Beyblade. 30-year-old men couldn't figure it out without YouTube and internet, but we did it, by George.
See, I think now, like, even though, of course, in the future, like our internet usage and technology is going to be advanced, but we still have a lot of the population that's here now that wasn't around, that the internet wasn't around, like for them. So they know how to do shit without the internet. So would be lucky enough, if that were to happen, that everyone would be looking to them like, okay, how did this work beforehand? Because, I mean, even for us, I mean, we were alive before the internet was running around, like, but we were kids and we didn't know what to do with that knowledge.
Oh, we used to have to go outside and play.
Yeah, it was nuts. But I feel like now, zoom 100 years into the future, then it would be a problem. But luckily there's enough stored information to where you could go back and figure it out, but it would be utter chaos until, things settled down.
But think of like as automation and things like that, and like self-replicating machines become a thing. So like place this in a sci-fi where that kind of stuff is real. Like, okay, here's this factory that produces all this high-tech material. and it also can reproduce itself
to make another factory to make
right
more high tech.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden us dumb monkey humans are living in a world that we don't understand.
Yeah.
And then say it becomes lost and destroyed, right? Much like the trope. And then, you come and read, and another civilization thousands and thousands of years later comes and rediscovers it. I don't know, it just makes like concepts like that in sci-fi seem more believable in a way, and it's just a really cool thing.
So are you saying that Al Gore typed into some ancient technology to bring about the internet and then the subsequent destruction of the human race?
He may have.
He tried telling us that.
And actually
but
the internet may just be, and I'm getting real out there here.
Go
way
out
out into
there.
the grapevine.
Yeah.
The internet might just be like an inevitable consequence of like nature, because we already see very similar things with like in neural networks and especially in fungus, like the mycelium networks that they use to communicate with their environment and stuff. So it's like maybe the internet is a direct like evolution of something like that.
Well, I'm unplugging all fucking Snake's Wi-Fi then, so that way they die out and don't scare me anymore.
I can always tell when Tiny stops listening in a part of a thing, though, because his brain was over there smoking. He said, I heard algorithm.
No, Al Gore invented the internet. He said so himself.
Algorithm.
He said like fungi, they like it's an organic way of communication, but for us, right, a chemical way of doing it. Like we don't have that, but we found a way around that, like to be able.
Well, and we are a part
to
of nature,
communicate.
and
Right,
we
yeah,
created
exactly.
it. So I mean, it's natural as anything. It
Yeah,
just
that's
doesn't.
true. That's
it just doesn't seem like that to us.
Yeah.
We have a very particular perspective on what we deem technology. Like you put a blade on a piece of wood, tie it to a ox, and that's technology.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So, that's the infancy stages of it. Stone tools and things like that.
Oh, you're talking about a plow.
Yeah.
I was thinking I was thinking that you had like this giant blade attached to the side of an ox.
So
that was
weaponized
to weaponize the oxen.
I mean, maybe.
All you gotta do is put it on its head as opposed to
He
its
is, but it's downwardly. It's weaponized against the ground.
Vote
Not against laterally, not against people.
Vote Marcus 2024. Weaponize your oxen.
So there's like Damascus steel that was lost to history, but then has been recreated. And that's like kind of where Martin gets his like Valyrian steel, because it's been lost to the ages as well.
Well, that's kind of a whole topic in and of itself, whether or not we've discovered what true Damascus is.
Right, but they have recreated it, at least as far as I've looked up. I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know.
That's a very hotly debated topic.
Well,
Really?
They call it something different to not get it confused with what people call Damascus steel now.
Right.
They call it something different, like woots or something like that. I don't remember what they call it.
Also, people used to harvest ore from meteorites and feel that they had blessed their blades with this otherworldly power, when in truth they were just discovering alloys and binding agents to strengthen their weaker materials they had at the time. So it wasn't anything that was actually of the gods and crazy nature like that,
Right.
but it was an advancement for their technology they had at the time, because you've got alloys from the meteorite that did not, were not known about, and how to get those. So that one, I mean, it's cool.
Is that like different kinds of cheeses, like different alloys of the?
I have no idea.
Because like if you mix Colby and Monterey Jack together,
Yeah,
you
marbled
get an
Colby
alloy
Jack.
of Colby Jack. Makes that a stronger cheese.
Colby Jack is an
that
alloy
is-
cheese.
That tastes so much better on the cheeseburger. See, I told you I could tie it in.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you put cheeseburger on the board. You mentioned like the plow being technology. When you break it down, it's like because what technology is now, we forget the meaning of the word.
Yeah.
Because now, of course, the first thing I think of when I hear technology is electricity, digital,
computer
like, yes.
chips. Yeah.
But that's not the case at all. Like it's a word that's been around for a lot longer than that.
Hell, even fire. Fire was technology at one point.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's like a Greek fire that was talked about in the old days that they used as weapons that you couldn't put out with water. And it was lost to time. And we still don't know exactly how they did it, but we have some sort of idea of, of like, I think like thermite and stuff like that. Like there's different ways you can make fire to where water won't
Yeah.
napalm.
But it's not
Right.
exactly the same way they did it,
Right.
but is a rediscovered technology.
Right. And that's also where Martin gets like wildfire and things like that.
Okay.
So this idea of like lost technology is kind of a more powerful trope, not just in fiction, but and in mythology, but I don't know.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, because it's weird to me, like why it's so cool, like just this idea of lost technology, rediscovered, that's highly sophisticated and advanced, because, to where it's indistinguishable from magic stuff and like gods, like maybe Zeus just had, could wield electricity through technology, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or Thor's hammer was actually just a gun, because the god of thunder, because if you shoot it and it's like, it's
of course, if you've never seen a gun before, you're going to think thunder.
Right.
I mean, that's like when they invaded America with Indians. Like they had never seen like gunpowder before, so that's what that seemed like.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I believe that's true. I'm just saying it's
it's
like myth deconstruction.
Well, possibilities and explanations for things that used to be considered above the understanding of mortals, labeled in those god tiers that could have actually just been advanced technology that they didn't understand. That's that's a serious trope within itself to say that science and magic are not that much different aside from understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, and that just your mention of Thor, the god of thunder, like the idea of writing a story to where Thor is a gunslinger, like back in the day, like people thought that he was using that kind of stuff, but his technology was actually this like, I don't know, galactic gunslinger, and that be a version of Thor.
That would be pretty cool. I've also found does anybody know about the Antikythera mechanism?
Nope, but now that you've said it so eloquently, you can tell me.
But not enough for me to explain it.
Well, me neither. All I know is it's like it was made in the 2nd century BC, and it somehow can predict like the position of the planets. It was basically a timekeeping mechanism.
Yeah,
it's somehow super accurate, like for its time.
Kind of devolved to the point of myth.
Yeah.
And they had used that technology. They had little globes that had like different runes and Sanskrit and stuff like that on there, to where you'd be able to position it in one way and rotate it as the position of a star that you were supposed to be lining it up with was moving in the sky, and you were able to predict like the positioning of the planet and everything else off of that. I learned that off of Pawn Stars.
Yeah.
But the idea of that kind of stuff, like you said, like it's got this magical quality almost to it because electronics aren't involved. Like, and it feels more impressive to me, like someone being able to make a sphere that you spin with the stars to be able to tell, I don't know, what's going on in the galaxy.
It's basically magic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that. And of course, I mean, just looking at this recorder that I have in front of me, that's like a magic box that makes lights and makes my voice appear into ones and zeros. Like that's magic.
Yes.
But like just thinking back of what humanity is capable of, even without like what we have now, it just seems so much more impressive.
If you think about it, as far as the archaeological record and the evolutionary record tells us, modern humans have been around for 300,000 years, of which we know about maybe 12,000 years of history.
Like, who knows what all has already been made in the past.
And we're still discovering stuff. Just like we'd mentioned it on a past episode about how the deforestation of the rainforest is actually revealing these ancient cities that were massive cities, massive civilizations, to the point to where you don't even think about the rainforest being a covering for these cities, because the rainforest covers, a third of South America, and their, deforestation is discovering that this could have been like main hubs of the world that were there, with the same kind of like indoor plumbing and all this other stuff that goes on with those lost technologies that get recreated like 10, 15,000 years ago.
Right.
And with the ending of those like civilizations and finding this kind of stuff, that takes my mind to dystopic stories in fiction. Like a lot of times there was some kind of, there's a technological boom and advancement and everything is so futuristic seeming, and then a dystopic event happens and everything is reverted back to the things were in the past, but there's still remnants of that technology that exist. So new forms of technology are formed between this like old before electronics and what's left behind.
Right.
And that's a really cool thing because it makes me think of something like cyberpunk. Like that's something with future tech, like all over the place.
Right.
And then if society collapses,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean, it's bound to do, like just what's left over from that.
Right. Well, I want to comment back on what Austin said and what you just said. So I'll start with you, Dane. Like, if we were to experience an interregnum and like all our way of life went away, and then some other future human civilization were to get back to the advancement of our time, it would look differently, probably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like their high technology, even if it was just as highly sophisticated as ours, would probably look differently than ours does.
Yeah, I don't think it could be perfectly replicated if it were to be
Unless they
tried
were to
again.
find like our sets of papers and like hard copies of things like how to make an iPhone.
Right. But more than likely they'll find partial pieces of that kind of information.
Well, and back to the lost technology from the rainforest, a lot of researchers think that there's so much genetic diversity when it comes to plant life and things like that in that place that it couldn't have been made other than like human cultivation.
Yeah, like intervention with
right.
nature.
So it's like basically just one giant garden kind of that humans made, and there was this really fertile black soil, like earthy soil stuff that they found that those people back then used to make that we can't quite recreate today. Like,
That's awesome.
right?
That we found out how to do it, like that could change.
Maybe. I mean,
the
it's
way
one of those things
farming's
that,
done.
like the Greek fire, we have some understanding of how this could be done.
Yeah.
But we just don't know how they did it.
I think that's something, over the ages that we've gotten better at, as a technological advancement that I don't feel may have happened in the past was recognition of molecular structure and recognition of like viruses, bacteria, all that kind of thing. Because a lot of theorizing behind, lost civilizations and the decline of lost civilizations typically come from a world-ending pandemic, from them not having an understanding of what these viruses are capable of, how to prevent the spread of said viruses. And a lot of people talk about when I say a lot of people, I mean the uber geeks, the uber nerds. They talk about the world ending through viral contamination because, up until like what was it, that late 18th century, something like that, nobody knew about cleanliness.
Yeah.
like
it wasn't a concept.
Like
The germ theory of disease.
yeah, like say you go back in time and you go to wash your hands before a meal. They're gonna think you're practicing witchcraft and they'll burn you alive. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm wiping my hands. I'm washing my hands so I don't get anything dirty. Washing your hand. You're removing your. Burn him
Off with his head.
Something else that I was thinking of just in the idea of like in the past thinking of future tech, like just our idea now of what future tech is
Could very well have already been invented.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also this
other planet.
It makes me think I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but it's called retrofuturism. It's like a type of art and storytelling to where in the past, like say I think it was popular more in advertising and stuff in the 50s and in the 40s and stuff, to where they had this idea of what it's going to be like in the year 2000, like floating, flying cars and buildings with like gardens growing all around them.
Back to the Future 2.
Back to the Future 2. Even Fallout, I believe the game Fallout, I think has a lot of retrofuturism involved with it of what a future would have looked like if some of these things came true.
Tomorrowland in Walt Disney World was a prime example of retrofuturism, because if you look at the creation of Tomorrowland, it is what the Disney Imagineers decided that they were going to put into effect to say, like, well, we're going to look into the world of tomorrow. We're going to go to Tomorrowland. Here's your Buick Skylark on hover wheels.
But it's so cool seeing things that they predicted, and it's funny seeing things that they got so wrong as well.
Like the hoverboard.
Like the hoverboard, exactly. We have a hoverboard now in name only.
It's wheels. It's still
wheels.
just a wheelie machine.
You're hovering. That's
it's
it.
wheels, and sometimes they catch fire.
The only hovering you would see on a hoverboard from me was that slight little instance between me falling and me hitting the ground. So that's the only hovering you get. It's temporary. It's a temporary hoverboard.
But even like 50 years from now, like looking back, like things that we now are thinking will happen, in 50 years from now, like what it's going to be like, what things we're going to, an actual hoverboard, maybe floating cars, all kinds of stuff. Even the artwork from now, the concept art, will be considered retro futurism at some point in the future. And that's neat to me to think about because of how many things we'll get wrong, but how many things we might guess right. I mean, think back like with Star Trek, the communicator that they had, cell phone. That's what it was. I mean, it was a cell phone. And they kind of created that flip, and then whenever the flip phone was invented, they looked at that design, and said, this was really cool then, this retro future kind of idea, and we can make it a reality now. So there's a lot of stuff in old ideas of future tech that we even pull from those ideas. So it's like this concept art becomes reality.
Right.
And that's something even in storytelling. And I mean, every movie, every show has some kind of concept art involved with it. And it's just a neat idea of a futuristic idea being something you conjure up before it can be possible. And then all of a sudden it can be possible. And if without that concept art, without that retro futuristic, thought process, would the thing ever be made to begin with?
Yeah, and if you want to go back a couple episodes and nerd it to the Grapevine, we kind of talked about a little bit of technology that's being developed. And it was being developed at the time. It's still being developed now, but we talked about the Neuralink. And
you mean episode 1?
Oh shit! But
there was a few episodes back.
it was
in
just
all
a few,
fairness,
just a few, a bushel. But the idea of machine integration into more organic life form to amplify or augment certain aspects of either ailments or just body modification, the way that they do in cyberpunk, or if you've got an entire symbiotic machine / person integration to where resistance is futile from joining them, you get into
Borgs.
Yes. And then you've got just the idea, because that could easily the Borg mentality
You must be assimilated.
that could happen so easily, because I don't TikTok much. By TikTok, I mean I watch their videos. I don't contribute.
I don't either. I don't watch them
It's
either.
called a lurker. No, Tiny, you would never.
I don't
You
even
would never
lurk.
send us in our group chat TikToks.
I would never do that.
You'd never do that every day. So what happens is that's kind of an assimilation of sorts to where if you're not doing that, you're missing out.
You're behind.
Yeah. So whenever it gets into the point to where, say, something like the Neuralink or a chip installed into your brain to enhance, I've already volunteered. I volunteered 116 episodes ago, and it still hasn't happened.
I'm not letting Elon, chicken leg chested man, muck around in my brain.
See, it's funny because just 116 or so episodes ago, I had the thought of, this would be awesome. But even in the time span between that and right now, my idea for that has completely changed. No way. I don't, because of how much advertising and how much corporations have to do with what we're subject to. It's everywhere and it's everything, and the last thing I want now is something embedded into my body that forces that onto me. But back then I was young, and I was a whole 31, maybe 32. I don't remember how many years ago. Over a year ago.
Well,
32.
if you got 116 weeks and there's 53 weeks in a year,
that's beyond my math. That is a future idea in itself. I have no idea to do that. But
bunny years.
Bunny years, right?
this many too.
So that many years ago. But yeah, my idea has completely changed. And then 2 years from now, it's just neat to know that little amount of time can happen, and the thought process of what you want and what you don't want from technology can change depending on what all has come out.
I still want the Neuralink. I mean,
you can get it.
Honestly,
you can die from a tongue piercing. Just imagine what you could do if they put a giant supercomputer in your brain.
Awesome.
What a way to go, really.
I've done so much damage to my body in my early 20s from getting on steroids, thinking that I was going to have this amplified strength and this muscle mass, and I was going to look like the superheroes that I worshipped in the comics, and the action stars that I saw in the movies. I wanted that. I needed that. I had to have it. I did whatever was possible. That's my one thing that I would probably go back and change about my life, is I'd go back and I'd kick that little shithead in the face and then complain about how bad my body hurts from that kick to the face that I just delivered to him. Because, to think that something like the Neuralink would be able to treat those pains, those aches,
Yeah, but what if it doesn't?
Well,
what if it messes up like that one cell phone that you had?
Well, the iPhone, I was a naysayer against the iPhones until I got one.
I'm still a naysayer against the iPhone, and I have one.
Me too. Me too.
That's the thing. Like, that's the idea of future tech being used for good and it being used for bad. Of course, like, all the good things could come from it. So much perfect. The idea of the internet, it's utopic. Like, it could be used for everything good, but it is definitely not. So whenever you look at all the things that future tech has to offer, like, most of the time that trope ends up with something very bad happening with good things, like things that can be used for good. And the human element is the problem. Like, we're where the problem comes in, because greed, like, drives future tech to a whole nother use than what it could be used for.
Oh, that would suck to have the Neuralink and then have a pop-up happen right in the middle of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You just be talking about some nerdy stuff here on the podcast. Drink Fago. Fago supports ICP. ICP supports Fago. Get fizzy.
Like, your whole body shuts
busy.
down for the ad, and somebody has like push on your chest to skip after 5 seconds.
Woot, woot, ninja.
But now, there are some cool things that exist now that we're not really seeing prevalence of, like smart glasses. I was watching a channel on YouTube called Void Star Labs. He's got like a little heads-up display on his face that goes over one of his glasses, and he uses it kind of like a teleprompter. And he's in the process of making a new one, which made me look up smart glasses, because we've got smart rings now and smart watches and smartphones, smart hats.
In this circle, 4 smart asses.
Yeah, smart asses. And so I was like, surely to God, smart glasses exist, and they do. And I'm really stoked, and they're kind of awesome. There's one company that you just put them on, and they look a little goofy because they stick out from your face a little farther than you think they should. But with them on your face, you are in the middle of 120 foot of screen, and you can set it to where you look and you see different parts of the screen, so you can watch YouTube and still see what's going on in the world around you. You can read a book and still like be cooking dinner.
That's some Tony Stark stuff.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it's
really
dope and it's awesome.
Called augmented reality.
Yeah, it's literally what it does. It augments your reality into this thing. And there's prescription glasses inserts for people like me who have prescription glasses. So you can still see normally, even though you wear the same. You're not having to double layer things over your face, because if you've ever tried that, it sucks.
It sucks, man.
It's the worst. That's why I hate going to 3D movies. And it even comes with a magnetic thing that you can like snap to the front, and it just blocks everything in. And so now you're in like your own privacy booth, and you can watch whatever you want because it blocks out everything else. But you have that as an option. It's very cool. And honestly, for what it is, it's really not that crazy priced.
And it's still in its infancy, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Google Glass was a thing. I think it was one of the first.
Yeah, it was.
Smart glasses things.
Yeah.
What was
and
that,
it didn't.
like 2004, 2007?
Something like
yeah,
that.
it was a
was
while
a
ago.
massive failure.
But it was a big failure because like the look was weird, the technology wasn't quite there yet. But I mean, even between then and now, like the size of our computer chips that we have, like so much smaller now that you can make a pair of glasses that don't look as goofy that can do something like that. I mean, think about like what a Raspberry Pi can do. Like it's a tiny little bitty
They're
box.
so good with a little bit of whipped cream on the top.
so delicious.
Boy.
And they're just a little bitty box with little bitty computer chip in it that can do all kinds of stuff. Like you can turn a mirror into a smart mirror, like just by putting this little bitty like circuit board on the back of it. And the smaller that gets, the more like realistic that the smart glasses are going to get as far as being like a widely used thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's still a niche.
To where you could even do it
Right.
like a contact lens.
Yeah, that'd be dope too.
And the nanotechnology that goes into that kind of stuff is literally becoming more of that actual nanotechnology. You know, it's that getting down to the point of being almost microscopic connections to stuff to where you don't have to, computers themselves, since the invention of computers, at least our knowing of the invention of computers, now that Marcus has me questioning my own reality.
Yes.
But, the invention of computers used to be an entire wing of a building. To have one computer that had less processing power than what we have at our fingertips in our hands at every point throughout the day.
Yeah, my watch has more power than that thing does, more memory.
And it's insane to think how technology progresses and the processing power becomes more advanced in smaller sizes still to this day. So the integration into, like, say, medical benefits for people that have to get artificial hips or have to get a pacemaker or anything else like that. It can make it more efficient, because I don't know if you guys know anybody that's had a pacemaker installed, but they got a box sticking out of their body. Like, before it heals up, you basically have this imprint of a box that's sticking out of your chest. And the idea of an implication of a nanotech that's going to be able to deliver those electrical impulses to balance your body's electrical mechanisms for your heart to make sure it beats the right way. Even stuff like that is insane to think about, but it's not that far away.
Right, like my mom, she had an implanted AED because she had congestive heart failure. So if her heart was to do a certain thing, it would shock it back into arrhythmia.
Oh, yeah, like a defibrillator kind of
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, it was like built into her.
Wow.
I even come across something really cool that just it would honestly make my life so much better. It's called the Aspire, and it's an implant that helps with sleep apnea. Just before you go to bed, you put it on your chest, and it turns it on, and it holds your airway open, so you don't need the little machine that they say is silent, but is not really silent.
Oh, the CPAP?
Yeah,
You
and
mean the thing that sits next to your bed and goes...
I mean, mine's pretty quiet, but mine is old, so now it makes more noises, and I overfilled it one night, so then it gurgles. So it's such a pain in the butt. That thing, you don't need any of that.
My friend Randy has a modern CPAP machine that is battery powered that he takes with him on hiking
there's
trips.
camping ones too. They are ridiculously priced as
They
well.
are ridiculously priced, but Randy loves camping and Randy loves hiking, and Randy needs it to
not die when he sleeps.
Stay alive. And the idea of this little, just about the size of what old battery chargers used to be for your cell phones, can now stay powered throughout multiple nights and provide you with open airways and oxygen support for your body. It's just getting better, and it's awesome.
Well, and then there's, like we mentioned earlier, like the idea of like the alien tech kind of stuff, when a lot of times organic is kind of mixed with the mechanical and the electricity and stuff. But like as soon as circuit boards can be made through like membranes, which is something they've been working on, is like making a membrane that can have the electrical currents flowing through it in a safe way. Like that's when the contact lens comes on. I mean, and that's where something like the bodysuit we were talking about earlier in the Gundam like show that we used to watch, like that's something that is like a membrane that you put around your body, and the currents flow through it to communicate with the mech you're inside. And
it exists now. Not motion capture, but the the way they do the motion capture for the different CGI and everything for video games and different stuff
like a mocap suit.
Yeah, where you've got sensors from head to toe that pick up every movement of your body, and you're able to now, in certain places in Japan that I've seen, have an anime character created, and you are piloting that character and all of their movements and everything that they're doing on a screen in front of you with your suit on.
That's super cool. And that's the future of gaming as well, VR gaming.
But like you could, I mean, eventually with the biotech, they could create a whole new type of cell similar to like the white blood cell that goes and regulates our body of germs and disease-causing things. Like you program it to seek out certain things. CRISPR with its gene manipulator, like the gene, like you'll be able to basically have designer babies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I want my baby to have blue eyes and red hair and
A
pink
tail.
skin.
And a tail. Yeah.
Yeah, and a tail and some dragon fangs.
And it better be prehensile.
So then you can, literally create, like humankind will eventually create gods.
So basically me, then create a bunch of me.
A bunch of tinies that rule the world.
So it's like God punk.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new genre. I want
That's
it to be.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, that's cool. I like that. But I mean, that's essentially in something like in cyberpunk. I mean, they've got like these like Atom Smasher is a person that he's like this unstoppable force that's more machine than man now.
Yeah.
Like they created basically a god that can do whatever he wants. But then whenever you start to throw in fantasy and magic into stories like this, there's a book I recently read called Starship's Mage, and it is a sci-fi fantasy because on the ships they've created this like these runes that have this communication across a whole ship. So they've got them integrated in this whole ship, and a mage can communicate with those runes and give you like hyper light speed travel, like where you can instantly like appear thousands of light years away, and it's a mage that's interacting with the spaceship to do so. And it's super cool when those genres fuse. I think that's like the ultimate genre for me is the sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah,
Just,
absolutely.
like it's fusing the best parts
If
of
done
all fiction
well,
together. Yes, if done well.
It would be my favorite genre.
It can be insanely trope heavy to the
Yeah.
point of just come on, man, like you know where everything's going or something like that.
But I mean, there are some decent examples in fiction of like that kind of lost high technology. You've got your dwarves in like Dragon Age and Skyrim who are kind of in this extinct rate. Well, I don't know if they're extinct in Dragon Age, but in Skyrim they're like extinct. But you when you delve into their halls, you get like all these like robotic creatures coming after you and stuff. They actually have Magitech spaceships in Elder Scrolls lore as well. So like they create these magical spaceships to go and explore the void and find all this stuff, but it just becomes like too expensive essentially for them to do. There's actually the old ones in Dark Tower. Can you tell me? I don't know. You have to tell me about
the
them.
old ones.
I just wrote them down because I figured you could say something about them.
They're basically the civilization that was before the current one. So you see hints and elements of it throughout Roland's world. In the first book, you see a way station, which I take it as it was like a gas station. Based on the description, you see like oil pumps and just things like that scattered throughout the world.
Yeah,
and
I
they
just read
don't
something
really
that said that they were like. There's a lot of examples of lost technology in the Dark Tower,
and some of the technology, since it's so not understood, that is seen as godlike. There's one example of, they call them slow mutants. It's people that evolved or devolved, however you want to term it. They lived under the ground, so they've lost their eyesight. They become, or they've become very sensitive to light, depending on which one. Anyway, one such group found a gas pump, and if I remember right, it was an Exxon one, and they worshipped it like a god. So their high priest would go up and like twirl it around and hold it between his legs and stuff because they didn't understand it.
That's hilarious.
I'd do the same thing if I found
I'm
that.
sure
in my
Star
backyard.
Trek has many examples of lost technology. Shannara was like set in like an apocalyptic America, essentially.
Yeah.
That's a Horizon, the
Zero
video game
Dawn.
Zero
Yep.
Dawn, and Forbidden West. That's a game where like that's very, very future tech stuff.
Yeah.
But catastrophe happened or whatever, so now they're more like American Indians, like as opposed to like just living in a future world. It's just electronic dinosaurs are walking around,
Right.
and it's cool as hell. And again, that's like the whole mech idea of just these larger than life futuristic things, these mechanisms that are the ideas of a future that could happen, but it's it might as well just be fiction now and just enjoy it now.
Right.
Because you can make it as cool as you want, as ridiculous as you want, and as vague as you want as far as descriptions on how it works. But in the future, that's where people are going to be trying to go, okay, well, how do we make this real?
It's not going to be Inspector Gadget style to where you've got, a go gadget longer legs.
I'd love a hat like his, though. Do I have like a little propeller that comes out of it?
The Hatticopter.
out of his fedora.
Yes. It was a fedora, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was.
the Hatticopter.
Then that's like, but there's also in all of the stuff that we've been talking about, like there's internal tech and then there's the external tech. And the external is most of what we know up until this point. And then now we're starting to see more of this internal stuff like happening. And that's where it gets into this whole like, okay, is this an invasive idea? Or in the case with your mom, like she had that thing that, you know, would save her heart. Like if it were to go off, you know, like that's a good thing and that's internal and it needs to be an invasive thing like to help you. But then that's where this whole idea of like, is it going to be used for good or for like nefarious purposes? And that gets scarier the more you see the internal tech happening. Because external, you can always just, you know, just distance yourself from it. But you can't distance yourself from something in you.
Yeah.
It
Well, and
becomes
that's
you.
the fear with the Neuralink, right? Is that
Yeah.
now all of a sudden some random hacker could not just hack my computer,
Heck you.
but it could hack my brain.
Yeah.
And that is something that's just so terrifying to me. Like, I don't think there's anything more terrifying than having someone like hack your brain.
I mean,
Good-
what if
good luck.
they like hacked your brain and then made you healthy? Like if somebody wanted to hack my brain and make me lose 200 pounds, do it, man. That'd be kind of awesome.
No, not me.
But like the brain hackers is inevitable. It's inevitable.
Yeah, Daddy.
And because I mean that's the natural progression of something, right? I mean something is created, so then of course people try to break it. Like it's the whole it's the circle of life when it comes to tech. Create something amazing, so somebody tries to find a way to ruin it or use it
Or
for a
steal
different
it or-
purpose or steal it, or anything. Like nothing is ever made just and just exist as the good thing that it was made to be, because the human element ruins all of it. Like in some way or another. So that's like every thought of the future tech, it always turns out to be some dystopic idea. Like it's impossible for us to like truly imagine a utopic state of future tech where it's all good. It's all rainbows.
Oh, yeah. No.
Like,
Well,
it
because
can't
we
happen.
just know the human condition.
Yes,
too
exactly.
much. Yeah.
Which we like to fuck shit up. Like it's what we do. Like, it's our whole jam. And that's the interesting part of where a lot of fiction leads and makes it actually more realistic. Like whenever I watch the cyberpunk anime or play the game or whatever, like you believe it. You believe all the heinous stuff that goes on. And it's less believable when you watch something like a Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
Where everything is perfect.
You just made me think of a band name called Heinous Anus. That should totally be a punk band. Anyway,
It should.
we didn't have to linger on it. I mean,
No, like I'm there
I was
now.
picturing
Like, yeah.
the cover art.
Like,
yeah.
of course you were.
But back to the technology stuff, though. It's like I feel like at least in like Hebrew mythology or whatever you want to call it, and then there's like Greek mythology. There is this like notion of the gods like seeing mankind's creations and then them like having a moment of fear that one day they would be able to challenge.
That's cool.
Like so that's why Zeus was so mad when Prometheus gave us fire. And in the Bible, that's why the Tower of Babel is like smashed down, because they were literally, reaching up to the heavens
Yeah.
to be able to challenge, the heavens in a sense.
Well, yeah.
So I just think that's a cool little trope in mythology.
It is cool.
They're almost at the gates. Well, make it where they can't talk to each other no more. That'll fix it. They can't talk to each other no more. Now they're just going to sound like they're babbling.
Well, I'm glad.
And racism.
And that's where
Introduced the bad things. Well, I hope we introduced the good things in this episode for everybody. Thank you for listening wherever you're at on Spotify, iTunes, Good Pods, blah, blah, blah. Give us all the 5 stars everywhere on all of them. If you've got them all on your phone, which I know you've got more than one, more than likely, like go in there, just look us up, hit the 5 stars and go, they good or they bad with 5 stars. That's all it really matters is that part. And then you can go on Redbubble or Teespring. There's a link in the description, and you can get a T-shirt of us. I'm actually wearing another podcast T-shirt right now called Space Castle, which is one of my favorite indie podcasts, and they got their stuff on there too. So like it's real and it's possible, and you can do it.
And if you'd like to talk about an Indiana Jones podcast that's also an independent podcast called the Indie Podcast, we can talk about creating that together and what we'd like to see in it if you get on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. by looking up at Nerd Grapevine, or if you wanted to donate a little bit to the cause, receive a shiny holographic Nerd Through the Grapevine sticker and unlock future content that you might not have readily available in other places, get on Patreon, look up Nerd Grapevine, give us a little bit of money. You'll be able to have all of that. But whatever you do, don't just be sitting around and talking about giant robots fighting monsters or having something inside of your body that's going to make your poop not smell bad because it's technology, because people are not going to understand where it comes from, and it's going to cause them to have a little bit of...
And I don't care what you say, Austin, cheese is not a steak sauce. No, just because you put it on a steak doesn't make it a steak sauce. That is cheese. It is a cheese sauce. And does not belong on steak.
Is ketchup a steak sauce?
No.
Okay.
But does it
That'll get
belong
you
on a
murdered.
crock? That's what we got to figure out. Does it belong on a crock?
I don't know. I know feets belong in Crocs.
We'll find out next week whether or not I have to eat it.
Yeah. I don't even remember why you have to eat it. But anyway, find us on Discord. There's a link in our description. If you remember why we have to eat this crock, you can.
We.
You can
There's
remind
no we.
me.
Dane said we several times.
Did not.
Okay, if you can remember why Dane has to eat Austin's crock next week, tell me on Discord. There's a link in the description. There's memes and all kinds of wacky, slappy, fun stuff. We're on there live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised.
For those of our listeners that choose to listen to us while they sit enthroned on their ancient lost piece of technology made out of porcelain, this question is for you. Actually, no, it's just for you, Dane. When life gives you grapes.
Oh, no. I'm going to gently peel the skin off of the outside of the grape, the part that's dangerous to dogs. I wish I could get rid of all the skins of all the grapes, including the ones in this room. Yeah, be ready. But I'm going to take the skin off that grape, and I'm going to make it into a little computer, and I'm going to make a contact lens that's a little grape in my eyes, so I only see grape. I see through a grape lens.
You can see through the grapevine.
Through the grapevine. That's how you view the cosmic grapevine, is you peel the outside of the grape skin and you slap it directly onto your eyeballs.
So you're having to perform a circumcision upon the grapes in order to access their grape skin.
And put it onto my eyeballs. So
Too late.
I think I'm just going to do that now.
Too late for this one.
Irrevocably. I can't say that word.
Irrevocably.
I can see